Hello guys, today I am going to be giving you guys my patch 6.1b Wild Rift jungle tier list. But before we jump into which champions I think are still mega OP, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the current state of the meta and which champion archetypes I think are particularly strong. So here I've got a little tier list of the different archetypes. I've put the 6 main ones: bruisers, mages, assassins, tanks, marksmen or ADCs, and enchanters. As you can see here, I think bruisers are just the best by far. The reason for this: they have damage, they have tankiness, and those are the two core things you need. And often a lot of these bruisers will have good mobility and stuff as well. So really their kit has everything that you need. Whereas if you consider the second tier with the mages and assassins, mages often have good damage, but they're often one shot, and similar for assassins. And tanks, on the other hand, are the complete opposite. They do no damage. So in the grand scheme of things, what's the most important? Doing enough damage so you can kill people, because if you play well and you have enough damage to kill someone before they can kill you, then it doesn't even matter if you're that tanky or not. And then the next bit is obviously having more tankiness and HP, so that you can go for more 1v2, 1v3 plays. So if you kill one, you still have enough HP to go and kill some more. So bruisers have both of these, but tanks only have the HP. If a tank goes and fights an ADC, they're probably going to lose, even though they can tank a lot, just because they don't output a lot of damage. And especially in an even worse situation, if a tank goes 1v3, they will definitely die without doing too much at all. Then we have marksmen. The reason they're so low is because they have damage, but typically they don't have a lot of mobility, and it's often quite a bit harder for them to play. For example, a mage like Lux can stand quite far back, throw spells from a pretty safe distance, but an ADC obviously does have that range as well, but it's much easier for them to get collapsed on, just because their range is typically a little bit shorter. And then finally you have the enchanter players, who don't do damage or have any sort of tankiness, which in my opinion just makes them feel very bad to play, because essentially all you're doing is supporting the rest of your team and hoping that they can do a good job. So yeah, personally not my favorite type of archetype at all. But that being said, let us jump into the jungle tier list, and hopefully you'll be able to see that I am sticking with this archetype sort of hierarchy and putting the bruisery type champions a bit higher. But just one last note on this: for other roles, for champions which are able to build a bit tankier and still have damage, they end up being the best ones in those particular roles. So obviously I'm doing a jungle tier list, but for example my top picks for other roles would be, for example, mid lane. I think Ryze is very good because he builds a lot of scaling HP items with the Rod of Ages and the Archangel Staff, both of which give like mana and HP, and just give him some extra tankiness. And on the ADC side of things, you can have really good champions like Kai'Sa, who can go tank boots and on hit items which give extra resistances and stuff like Wit's End and Terminus, and that extra tankiness makes them so strong that they can do so much damage but they still won't die. And that's exactly what you're looking for in this game if you're trying to 1v9 games. But thankfully bruisers have all of that encompassed into one, just into the items that they build regularly, as opposed to these sort of niche mages and marksmen. But anyways, going on to the actual tier list itself, let me first just go through the actual tiers themselves. So we've got the top tier, which is just the most broken champions you can play, and you don't really need to know what you're doing. You just press some buttons and you'll be just fine. Then the second ones, we've got champions which are also really good, sometimes even better than the ones in the first tier, but you do have to be good at playing them in order to make them as good as they can be. Then we have similar tiers over here. We have just good, but you don't really need to know what you're doing. And then we have good champs, but you actually have to be pretty good on them. But I just want to say one caveat with all of this. If you're good at any champion, you can make it work. The most important thing is you understand how to play jungle and you know how to play your champion well. Maybe your champion won't be the best one that you can play, but even if you can play it well, that's more important than trying to play one of the OP champions, except if it's a Mumu. If you just want to win every game, just try and pick a Mumu. If it's not banned, then you'll probably have a pretty good time. But anyways, rounding out the tier list, we have the situational champs, which are very good into certain comps, and then I have the ones which I just personally wouldn't play because they don't really do anything particularly well. All right, so starting off with our tier list, no one is going to be surprised to see a Mumu up here. The reason he's up here is because he's tank, right? But he does some crazy damage. His tankiness is through the roof and his damage is through the roof. He pairs up quite well against these bruiser champs, which I mentioned are pretty strong in the meta right now, just because they have to go in close range to fight him, and he's just standing there crying, doing some ridiculous amount of damage while taking no damage as well. And on top of that, he has very good utility with his ultimate. So yeah, pretty OP champ. Then we've got Nocturne, the new champion. I do think he is pretty good. Again, you can go for more of like a bruisery build or more damage depending on what you need. I think the main reason he's good is because his ultimate, just making everyone unable to see. So especially in solo queue environments or anything that's not a 5-stack, it makes him very strong. Just because later on in the game, when his ult cooldown isn't even that high, he can just go and dash to whoever he wants and get a pretty free kill. Then I'm gonna go through the rest of these pretty quickly. Warwick, really OP. Again, all of these champs in the rest of these champs in the top tier are all bruisery sort of champs. They do a lot of damage. Warwick has some really nice sustain. Wukong, crazy damage as well for the one shots, but also can be built more bruisery for some more tanky team fights. Vi, just really big damage, and also just really easy to pilot as well. I think that's the main thing I want to mention with this tier up here. You don't really need to know what you're doing. You can just press buttons and you'll be able to get 80%, 90% of the champion's maximum potential. And similarly with Ambessa, you just go a bit tankier with a Trinity Force, a Sundered Sky or a Black Lever or something, and you will be pretty unkillable, and you'll also just do some crazy damage. Now moving on to the second tier, where I'm saying these guys are still very good, arguably better than some of the guys in the first tier, but you do need to know what you are doing. I think Riven, hands down, might be the best jungler of this patch, but you do need to know what you're doing with her. She is really good in team fights with her ultimate, especially now that it resets, and you'll see a sort of trend with this as well. So Riven, very good. Aatrox, very similarly, really big menace in team fights. If you can play both of these champions well, you can win a lot of games, because Aatrox, his healing is through the roof, and having that extra tankiness, you'll see he'll have so much healing, he'll have so much damage, so much tankiness, he's unkillable. Just the other day I was playing against an Aatrox, and the Aatrox was the only Fed member on his team, and he was unkillable. We would throw everything on him and he just wouldn't die, which was kind of crazy. But then we have a few slightly less OP ones, but still very good. Lee Sin, I think if you're very good at playing the map and know how to play him well in team fights and just getting that crucial pick on the right person, he can be very good. Viego, similarly, doesn't require too much skill, but it's more just about knowing when to go in. But once you go in and get a reset, then you will be very strong. Zed, similarly, a very mechanical champion, probably one of the most mechanical ones in this tier in terms of really getting the most out of him. But if you do know what you're doing with your shadows on such low cooldown and with your ultimate, you can assassinate anyone you want in the late game, and that makes him a really potent threat. And we have Yone getting a buff recently, so I think he is going to be very good right now. Again, you can build him more bruisery, or you can just go full damage if you want, but I think definitely going more bruisery allows you to just still one-shot the enemy and still survive as well. Obviously, I am a little bit biased being the rank 1 Nunu right now, so I have to put my Nunu in here. I don't think he's really as easy as maybe I make him out to be. You do need to have some idea of what you're doing, but he's definitely not as hard as some of these other champions in this tier. Alright, I'm gonna kind of go through the rest of these relatively quickly, but these next few, the first 5, Pantheon, Hecarim, Jarvan, Jinzhao, and Shyvana, they're all pretty good, and you don't really need to know what you're doing. I would recommend, if you feel like you're just want to win games and pick overall better champs, I would just pick someone from one of these top tiers, to be honest, if they're not banned. Vi typically better than Jinzhao, Jarvan in my personal opinion. The ult is just better, and Ambessa is also probably better than them in terms of just fighting power. Next, we've got some of the AP champs. Evelynn did get a buff. I don't think she's OP yet. I feel like she's maybe just a worse version of Nocturne, but you do need to know what you're doing with Evelynn. If you manage to catch people unaware and they haven't got good vision on you, it is easy to get some pretty nice picks. Echo, again, not too hard to play. Late game you will be one-shotting everyone, and Lilia, again, not the hardest to play, but a scaling champion as well. If you do need an AP champion, you can pick one of these. I think Lilia is probably the best out of them. I think Amumu is always just going to be better. Obviously I know he's not straight AP, but he is probably going to be a better choice in most situations than them. Next we've got a few more scaling champions. We've got Nyla, Graves, again both not bad, don't need to know too much, but you do need to understand that you're not really a champion until like 3 or 4 items, so you just need to try and get there. Again, it does require a lot on you being able to farm safely for the entire game and your team to not instantly lose. So I wouldn't say these are very good champs, but if you enjoy playing that more sort of farming passive play style and trying to carry the game later on, these champs are not bad at all. Then we've got a few more AP champs. Again, Diana, Gragas, similar to Echo, Lilia, just your average AP champs. I don't think there's too much differentiation between all of them. Then we've got Master Yi. Again, sort of just need to wait a little bit and then go in, press all your buttons, and you'll probably kill everyone. But I think these champions in the top tier are just better. Then finally we're rounding off with some tanks. Very solid choices, but again, nothing too crazy. I think if you want to have a better chance of carrying a game, I would pick one of these champions in the tier. I mean, obviously, always pick something from a higher tier if you can. But overall, as it comes to tanks, they are not too bad at all. Now we've got some champions which can be very good. And again, my personal opinion is if you're very good at this champion, you can make them better than some of the champions in the good just by pressing buttons. The only reason I've put it higher on the tier list this way is because I'm assuming you have like equal skill across all the champions. So someone who's playing Pantheon for like the first time is going to have a much better game than someone playing Rengar for the first time. But that being said, these champions do have a lot more potential if you can pilot them properly. I think Rengar, a very scary champion if you can play around the bushes well. Karzik, similarly, if you can play around his ult, going for the angles and picking off people one by one, it's really strong. Kindred, knowing how to maximize her marks, very important. Talon used to be quite strong, less so now, but I think again, if you know how to one-shot people with Talon and get out, you can make this champion work. But I know I said it before, but any one of these champions really will have an easier time to do the job and also just do it more consistently. For example, Riven, you could just go in, have your ult, kill one person, you get a reset, kill another, keep going, whereas none of these champions have that sort of utility. Now we also have Fiora, Irelia. These champions typically better in lane in my personal opinion, and Jace as well, but you can play them in the jungle if you are very, very good at them and you do enjoy playing them. Now we've got the OP but situational tier here. So this tier, they can be very, very good in certain situations, right? Maybe even above both the good tiers, but you do have to have the right circumstances for it. That's very important. For example, Olaf is very good into heavy CC comps with low mobility. Think about a team with a Lux and a Morgana, and also champs like Rammus, you know, whose main focus is trying to CC you. So any champs with pretty immobile carries. It also helps, yeah, if the ADC, for example, is like a Jinx, can't really dash away or anything like that, then Olaf can be very, very good. Rammus, very good into full AD comps, a lot of auto attackers. Imagine the enemy picks like a Tryndamere top lane, they maybe have like a Viego mid and a Yasuo mid lane, then Rammus could be a very good pick because the auto attacks are not going to do too much to you. Gwen, really good into tanky comps, and so is Red Kayn. Red Kayn more so into melee, definitely comps, you have to keep that in mind. For example, champs like Thresh sometimes don't count as melee even though they are tanky, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, Gwen good into tanks, so is Red Kayn. And Darius, another tricky one. You also want to be playing Darius into champs which can't get away so easily, similar to Olaf, but obviously he doesn't have the unstoppable in his ultimate. So Darius really wants to get champions who can't kite very well, but often it is pretty hard to find a comp like that. And I am just throwing Kayle in here, and the situation you'd want to play Kayle in is just if you are in a bit of a lower elo and you think you are better and you don't really trust your teammates. Similar thing could be said to some of these other champs like Nyla and Graves, but Kayle in particular is when you think of like you literally just farm the whole game and then hope that you don't get punished for it or anything, and then you go and 1v9 later on. And finally, just a few of these champs to round off the tier list who are not very good. Morgana, I think there are just so many champs who are better. Just play Morgana mid lane to be honest, or just don't play her at all. Fiddlesticks, really niche champion. You can only play him like you're only a champion if you can ult from out of vision, and it's really hard to do that consistently. Again, Fizz, for the, yeah, he's just not as good as the other AP champions in my opinion. Singed, this guy desperately needs some buffs. He is so unplayable, at least in the jungle. I think in lane it's not bad because then you can run Ghost and Flash, but yeah, don't be playing this guy in the jungle. And finally we have Tryndamere. Again, just the amount of playmaking and utility with the champion is not much, right? It's essentially a Kayle, a melee form of Kayle that just has to go and whack people, and you have to play around the ultimate, otherwise you're completely useless. But even if you get like CC'd, yeah, suddenly you're completely cooked. So it's just, yeah, stay clear of this champion. But hopefully I have gotten all the champions. I know I missed a few last time, but let me know what you guys think, which champion that you guys hate the most and which ones you think are most OP right now. And just to conclude, basically, if there's one thing you want to take away from this, it's that bruisers are the best currently. So if you're picking any sort of bruiser, you're probably going to have a pretty decent time. And then for the rest of the archetypes, say mage assassin second best, and then the tanks, marksmen and enchanters less good. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.